Welcome to Jackson's Warfield. Today we're painting a Psychomancer, which is one of the cooler Necron models that you can find. It's got both standard Necron stuff. You see the guy with his, long stuff there. I don't know what they're called. Tentacles? Not tentacles. And then you got that digital skull spell he's casting. We're going to get this guy painted in under an hour. So this is going to be I guess you say, battle-ready paint scheme. I always start off my Necrons with Canoptic Alloy. Dry brush. This is part of my standard Necron scheme. So this guy was primed with lead belcher. Well, he was primed with lead belcher. It was not a zenithal prime. It was just straight lead belcher. And I'm coming in with the Canoptic Alloy to basically turn this primer into a base coat. So the Canoptic Alloy is a little bit of a reddish oxide kind of a steel color. It does make a difference to how this guy's going to look. Now, you might not necessarily be able to tell on this video as much of the impact that the Canoptic Alloy dry brush is having, but you can trust me that the effect is being had. This will make your Necron look like you didn't just leave him as just primer. Once I've got all the Canoptic Alloy down, it's time to move into actually starting some real base coats here. And I'm planning what to do here. All right, so we're going to do a little bit of gold. My scheme for my Necrons is I get some gold is going to show up on any of the HQ or leader type units. The Psychomancer is, in my opinion, a high enough rank that he gets a little bit of gold. So I'm hitting some gold high up on the staff here. I just picked off one of the little emblem things. And I'm also going to put some gold lower on the model because you want to balance off the gold. That's a big thing here. So if you going to put gold somewhere on the model, you don't want to just in one spot. You need to balance them all by having some high, low, left, right, that sort of a thing. Now, it's tough to access a lot of areas of this model once he's fully assembled. I don't like to build and paint in sub-assemblies because the idea of assembling after he's been painted, in my opinion, is tough. You don't get a good idea of what the lighting would look like, and it's really tough to keep all the sub-assemblies organized while you're waiting to paint it, because I don't get to paint the same night I assemble things. But if you're going to paint a model fully assembled all the time, you will develop good brush control. And then you'll be happy you have good brush control. All right, so we finished the gold. I made his little beard gold. And it's time to come in with the second base coat, or maybe the third base coat. This is coming in with some Vallejo black. This bottle of black I didn't use in a bit, so I had to trach the bottle here, so I unclog it. So I'm painting the shoulder pads black. This is my personal scheme. I like to paint some black, especially on the elite units or on the HQ units for my Necrons, and then you'll see we'll come in later with a cool effect with a bit of a green glow on some of the Necron iconography on the shoulder pads. So I'm just putting a little bit of black here, trying to get the edges. I'm making it look like the whole entire armor piece is black, so I will be painting the underside of it black. If you painted just the outside, it would look like it was a painted shoulder piece, but I don't always do that, because if you leave just the outside painted, honestly, it more so looks like you just got lazy, as opposed to the model has a shoulder piece that was only painted on the outside. Unless you do a really good job with it and do some paint chip effects and things like that. You'll notice as I'm handling this guy, I'm flipping him upside down a lot and to the side, and I'm not really being that shy about touching areas that I've already painted before. Again, this is a 1 hour paint job, so I'm fine with it. I'm also, in general, going for just one coat, because that will give you a few things. One, it takes less time to paint things in one coat. And two, in some cases, it actually makes the texture look interesting. You may have noticed that I accidentally broke him while I was manhandling him, and so I'm going to come in with a quick repair here before we get into the Nuln Oil and doing the actual wash. This seems early, you would think, in a model, in a paint job, to actually do a wash, but I'm going to do a lot of lighting effects here. So a lot of Necrons, it's like you got the silver, and then you got all the green stuff, and you got to get the, oh crap, I permanently stained my mat here. This is not a painter's mat. I'm just trying to find something that's a good color. You got to get the shades in before you come in with the lights. So that's why we're washing now. And I'm also not going to be spending a lot of time on his robot tentacle things. So I'm making sure they stick out a little bit by putting Nuln Oil. There are some key areas to shade on a Necron. Any areas where you're not going to paint on like those robotic tube things, you got to paint that. You got to paint the elbows. You got to paint the hands. If you don't paint the elbows and hands, they really just look like plastic toys. You got to get that shadow on the Necron hands. Armpits are big. You want to just get a ton of shade in those armpits so it doesn't look like it was lit up in there. And here I had to remove a hair. I also decided that his staff is just going to be silver on the outside, so I put some Nuln oil there to get the shading in. Now I'm coming in with the white, so I'm coming in now with the areas that can be lit up. So that's his, his eyeball. I'm getting his eyeball white. It's going to come back over and make it green later. And I'm getting some of the orbs, the ones I think are important ones. Every single orb in the model, I'm getting the big ones. So I'm getting the ones on the side here. I'm going to obviously get the big orb on his staff. I'm going to get the side orbs on his staff as well. And I'm going to come in and light up his back. I'm actually going to miss getting this on camera. I am going to light up some of the iconography on his shoulder pads. But here I'm basically gearing up because the longest part of this paint job by far is going to be getting the digital stuff, like the digital skull, getting that to be white. Also, I'm able to get these orbs on the first pass getting the white here, mainly through good brush control, but I don't need to come in with a second coat because having slightly uneven coat coverage here with the white, it's actually going to make the orb look more interesting later when we come in with another color. So it's like the second and third coats. Well, it's only going to be a second coat, but second coat is going to be non-white. So I only need one coat of white here. This is fine. Yeah, I think my Psychomancer is probably getting a little bit motion sick here. All right, now here we are. I'm painting up the digital skull, and this I think took me at least 10 minutes to paint all of this. If you've ever heard of the shoreline paradox, it's the idea is you can't really effectively measure the length of a shoreline of a country, because the more you zoom in or any area, you start getting a more and more complex shoreline, and it gets longer as you measure eventually to the outside, like every pebble along the shoreline. This model kind of makes you think about that, because there is a lot of surface area to paint here because of all the like digital blocks. You have to come at from every angle to get it white, and a lot of whites, including the quill. It's not a quill, including Pro Acryl titanium white, which is my favorite white. Is they end up being a little bit watery, even if you've thinned it down at all. Even if you haven't really thinned it down, it ends up being a little bit watery. So you have to come back over it. With the orbs, I can get away with just one coat, but I had to keep coming back in here to the digital parts because it would actually recede from the edges, and I didn't want to have any silver fall going through here. You want the white here to make sure that you're going to brighten up the color we're going to come in with later, which is going to be a green. You don't want silver there because then you'll be dark, especially with the way that the color was receding from the edges. The edges would end up being darker, like a darker green than the recesses if the white was all pooling away. When that's not really, in my opinion, how a digital kind of bust like this would look, is that you would want the brighter edges at the corners as the thing's kind of blinking into existence. So yeah, no, this took a while. It's this area of the paint job where you want to make sure you have some music to listen to. All right, I'm basically at the guy finished up now. I missed on camera getting the iconography painted. I don't know why I left the camera off, but that's what it looks like. It's a little messy, but that'll be fine because we'll clean it up later. The green we're first going to use here is Hexwraith Flame. This is the old Necron green. The digital area, I'm going to go entirely with Hexwraith Flame, as I want it to look green. I don't want it to look like an energy source as much as like a digital creation. So that's why we're going straight Hexwraith Flame. Hexwraith Flame. The fact that Hexwraith Flame also is a bit of an older contrast style paint, it was like they made it before contrast paints were a thing. It comes through as kind of thin. It can be an annoying paint to use on its own, but I think that's going to work here for the digital effect. I want that. I want some white to be falling through as I accidentally wipe off some Hexwraith Flame on the mat. So I have to keep coming around, watch it dry, come in with a little bit more Hexwraith, drop it again, and come in with more Hexwraith Flame. Now I'm going to be applying Hexwraith Flame to the iconography. So I'm putting a layer here over the white. The fact that this is a recess helps, and the fact that Hexwraith Flame is such a translucent paint also means I don't have to be that precise here. I just got to get the green to cover the white. It's going to look sloppy after this first step, because the white, you're not going to be perfect with the white. And I forgot I need to use my light here to get a little bit more exact. But yeah, you got to get the green in there.
What?
And then what you do, you come back and you're going to be cleaning it up with black. So this is how you make this effect look nice. You come in with the black and you paint the edges because, again, the iconography is like recessed into the shell, into the armor. With a good enough brush, you can almost paint over top of the green. I say almost because, as you can see, I'm about to make a mistake here. But yeah, you're able to actually get it to look pretty nice, so you don't have to go nuts with how detailed you are with the white or with the Hexwraith Flame. You just got to come in with the black and have control at this step. It's a heavy brush control technique, but it looks really cool when you're done. You've done a good job with it. I'll make some other cleanups a little bit later here, so I wasn't absolutely done with it, but it was pretty good. All right, now we're going to do more of the orbs and the rest of the glow effect. I like to use a mix now of Hexwraith Flame and Tesseract Glow. The Tesseract Glow is the new Necron paint. And Tesseract Glow is a weird paint to use by itself. It is much more yellow than Hexwraith Flame. So I actually like the mix of the two because Hexwraith Flame creates a little bit of shading and the Tesseract Glow gives it more of that pop, like that yellowish green, like a lime green kind of a pop. And you can then use the mixture also to shade areas of the model where you have like the light effects coming off of them. You can shade like around the eyes, and I'm using this here to show like where the digital skull is coming out of the robot tentacles here. So it's pretty cool effect, and it's pretty universal. Now, if you want to spend more time on the orbs on the Necron, you can do some more blending where you go from like a yellow to a green. You don't even necessarily need to use Tesseract Glow to do that either, but you see here I'm using Tesseract Glow to get a little bit of that spillover light. But this mix has worked very well for me. I'm not sure that I've seen many other people use it either, a mix of Hexwraith Flame and Tesseract Glow. They both are paints with their own challenges, but together they actually work very well. Dorn Yellow here I do use on the bigger orbs just to get a little bit of that middle of the orb to be a bit more yellow, so it gets a little bit more of a lighting effect. I'm coming with the white, and here I realized I forgot to do the ribs. So I painted the ribs, and while the ribs are the white and the light against the ribs are drying, we're starting up the base here. So this is a pretty standard base, Armageddon dust for the base, and I'll do a layer of Armageddon dust, and because it looks kind of generic and maybe kind of single color, once I get enough of the Armageddon dust in there, I'm using a scraping tool in here to get it all over the base. I don't use brushes for this because you really destroy brushes if you use texture paints with the brush. So I'll get all the Armageddon dust in there, and I'll drop some Nuln Oil actually onto the base to make it look like either a bit of an oil drip or just to darken the Armageddon dust. And while I'm doing this, again, the ribs, the white that it came in for the lit up ribs is drying. I put the white into the recesses there. Now as we finish this up, it's now dry enough that I can come back in the ribs and now add the Tesseract Glow and Hexwraith Flame mixture, which is, I should have said earlier, a 1-to-1 mixture. Doing a final dry brush here just to get some highlights. I don't need to edge highlight that much, but I'm doing a little bit of a white dry brush on the edge of the black armor, just really at just the corners. Going from black to white doesn't look as much like an edge highlight, but white at the corners works well. I'm also putting a little bit of an edge highlight here on the staff, and now I'm giving a nice rim job to finish it off. I'm using just the same black here, the Vallejo black. Even though my first Necrons were all Abaddon black, I'm happy with the Vallejo regular black here. And that pretty much finishes up. I mean, there's some touch-ups I had to do, from reaching all over the model. I had to come in later to clean up some of the green. Like I ended up getting Hexwraith Flame on different areas of the model when I was frustratingly trying to paint the skull, but he's pretty much done. You see, I like the back, like the look here. This is just some more touch-ups here. And yeah, our Psychomancer is done. This was done in under 1 hour. If you like this scheme, remember to subscribe to Jackson's Warfield for more schemes like this. Let me know if you think this was useful, and I'll see you in the next painting video.